Okay, we're getting geared up here. We've added all the nodes into the cluster. It seems that vManage is restarting again. And after it comes up, we're going to do the enterprise CA portion. Okay, vManage restarted. Let's just check again. All our cluster nodes should be visible. Yep, and they all say ready. Perfect. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I made an SSH connection. I ran 2 commands from vshell. One was to generate a root CA key.pem, and the other to generate, I'll just arrow up so you can see the command, to generate the root CA.pem. Then what I'm doing is I'm taking this pem file and I am going to paste it into the portal. So I'm going to go to configuration, administration, settings, and then I'm going to find controller certificate authorization, and I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to select enterprise root CA, proceed, and I'm going to paste it in here. Okay. After I do this, I have to still generate a CSR and a certificate and install the root chain on vManage 1. So to do that, I go into configuration, certificates, I select controllers, and then I go to vManage 1 and I say generate CSR. When I do that, it actually, well, I could download this if I wanted to, but it actually pushes it directly onto the machine. So if I do an LS, I'll see the CSR there. So now that I have the CSR, I can generate the certificate. So I'm just going to copy the command here. And I can see now I have a certificate. So I'm going to cat that out again. And I'm going to paste it into the GUI. Oh, don't tell me it restarted again. Okay, evidently vManage just keeps restarting randomly through this whole process, so we'll just have to wait till it comes up. Okay, so as you can see, when we get to this stage of configuring the overlay, all of these restarts are very disruptive and kind of prevent us from much automation at this stage. Currently, that may not be the case in the future. All right, let's paste in the cert. So I'm going to go into configuration, certificates, select the controllers button. And I can see that the CSR was generated. I'm going to click on install certificate and paste. Now I am going to repeat the process of generating the CSR for the other vManage machines, and then the CSR gets actually pushed down to those machines. So what I will do is SCP the CSRs over to vManage in order that I can generate the certs, and then I will follow the same process to simply click install cert and paste the certs in. Now the other thing I have to do is install the cert chain, so let me do that now. And I also have to copy the rootca.pem to each of the machines, so I can do that. So I'm going to do this request root cert chain install, and I don't do that from vshell, I do that from the requests. So I am good to go now on vManage 1. So to recap, my next steps are I'm going to be copying the rootca.pem to the other vManage machines, the vBond, the vSmart, and the vEdge. Then I'm going to be running the request root ca pem, the root, this command that I just ran, which will install the ca chain on those machines. Then I will be generating a CSR via the console for vManage. And once those are all done and installed, I am going to come into the GUI and I'm going to add in the vBonds here, so vBonds and the vSmarts. And after I add them in, I can then generate the CSRs for them. SCP the CSRs over to vManage 1, generate the certs, and install them in the console. So this process takes total, if I'm working really fast, about half an hour. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when I have completed all the certificate installs. Okay, we are back. So all of the certificates have been installed for vBond, vSpart, and vManage. You can see that here. You can see the expiry date, the certificate serial date, and we can see that things are starting to sync. So one thing, after we install all the certs, we want to go send to vBond. And after this, it's going to take a little while to kind of bake in, for everything to sync up, and for our cluster to fully form and fully communicate with vBond and vSmart. Next, after everything is showing as in sync, we are going to build a vEdge outside the pipeline using an automation task, which is just another way we do development work. So we actually build automation tasks before we ever build a pipeline. So we're kind of reverse engineering our way. All right, this was successful. And now if we go to devices, controllers, we'll see that the devices are in CLI mode. So what we are going to do is we are going to apply templates and put them into vManage mode so that they can talk netconf. And we will do that in a little bit after the device status is showing in sync. So to do that, we can literally go change mode, vManage mode, and it says it requires attaching a template to a device. Now, this is why I say it's like the chicken before the egg, because if we had all our templates made, we could use the API to attach them to devices, but we don't have any templates yet. So this is our first cluster. After we build templates, what we can do is we can download them and we can save them in our Artifactory or in Git or even in our Vault. And going forward on new clusters or on additions to this cluster, we can use those templates via the API. But for now, we need to actually get some templates. So we're going to create a template. What's really interesting here is there's two types of templates. But the fastest way to get up and running to put things in vManage mode is just to import the running config. Okay, so actually, before we do that, we need to set a few things that are also decoupled in the GUI. So again, I'm on vManage 1, so I want to set my vBond DNS. And we can see that the service provider name is already set up here. Now, one point worth noting is DNS is very important. So what I have done is I've updated my Route 53 vbond.devops-ontap with the IP addresses, both the elastic IPs and the internal IPs for the two vBond machines. And what I recommend is you create host files on all the servers, because if you ever have an issue with DNS, it would just completely take down your cluster. All right, so let's go back then to devices and finish our templates. Change mode, and we're going to go into vManage mode. And we're going to go create template. Now, the easiest way to get going with this is literally just to select a device model. So I'm going to do the vBond. Well, actually, we can do the vManage first. And I'm going to call this vManage 1, vManage mode. And now I'm going to see if I can select my vManage 1. And it literally imports my running config. Now, if I wanted to, I could make changes in here. So maybe I'll make some changes. So I actually see that we have interface 0 on VPN 0. Allow netconf. Okay, we're going to leave this for now. We may change this configuration later. Okay. Add. All right, and I'm going to create another one for vManage 2, vManage mode. And I will make a third one. Okay, and now I am actually going to attach these to the devices. So I'm going to attach this one to vManage 1. And we'll wait till it's successful. You can only do one at a time. I am going to do this process for vBond and vSmart as well. So I'm going to put all of the devices into vManage mode. That means they're going to talk netconf to each other. So this one was successful. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to attach the next one. This will mean that I can no longer make changes from the CLI. Any changes that I make will have to happen through here. And unfortunately, if you try to do more than one at a time, you can't. So this is where the API comes in. When you're using the API, you can do more than one at a time. We'll get into that later. But for now, we just have to get going with something. So let's go ahead and we will attach this. Oh, did I? Okay, yeah. All right, attached to vManage 1. Oh, what's going on here? So I did vManage 2 and this one. I'm going to do this exact same process for vBond and vSmart, and I will come back. So I'll just pause the recording. Okay, so I repeated the process. I created, put all of the vSmart, vBond, vManage in vManage mode. simply by creating a CLI template, importing the running config, and then attaching that template onto the device. To my understanding, it just enables netconf, so that's how they communicate. We can see now that the device status, they are all in sync. So we are ready to go onboard a vEdge, but before we onboard our vEdge, let's go ahead and add in a tenant. So let's go ahead here. Let's just take a look at monitor for a second. Okay. So what's going on with these? All right, so now that we have put all the devices in vManage mode, we can come here to monitoring overview, and we can see we have 2 vBond, 2 vSmart, 2 vManage, no WAN edges. So it looks like things are still kind of baking, but what we're going to do is we're going to add in a tenant. So if we were a service provider and we wanted to add in our tenant, we would go to tenant management, add tenant, new tenant, and in here it needs to match what's in the plug and play portal. So here we're going to call this tenant Ace Spades, and organization name needs to be the service provider, so devops-ontap.com -Ace Spades, and description, and the URL subdomain is going to be acespades.devops-ontap.com. And forecasted devices, this is the number of CSRs, Catalyst 8000, 9000 forecasted devices that the tenant is going to use. I'm just going to put 12 here for now. And then auto placement, we have to select at least 2 vSmarts. And let's just double check this name. I'm going to log in to the plug and play portal and just verify I have that correctly before I add it. And I'm going to go down to plug and play. And I'm going to select here my Ace Spade. Okay, so it's Ace Spade Cisco, so it's good I checked. So the controller profile for this tenant is Ace Spade Cisco. Okay, and there's a provisioning file, and I have my devices here. So I have quite a few Catalyst 8000, some vEdges, and a CSR 1000B. Okay. So on my controller profile, I can see that the profile is Ace Spades Cisco, that the primary host of the service provider vBond is this, and the organization is this. So I actually need to make a correction. So my organization name is, I'm just going to paste it in here. Oops. Okay. And instead of just Ace Spades, it's Ace Spades Cisco. So I'm just going to correct that. And as well, correct that here. Okay, and I'm going to click Save and Add. And now we will, if there's no errors here, we will have, oh, and we successfully set up our first tenant. So that's the process for adding in the tenants. Components of this can also be done from the API, and we'll get into that a little bit later because the API is pretty complicated. And let's just go ahead here, and we can actually switch into our tenant view. Once it's set up. We added it. Maybe it didn't add. Hold on here. Tenant management. Okay, I don't think it added, so let's just add it here again. Description. And I'm going to say 12. Auto placement on both of these vSmarts. And let's just copy the organization name out of plug and play. Okay. And then we're going to do save, add. Oh, okay, so I just have to be a little bit patient. So it is adding it in here. All right, so we'll just have to wait a few moments until it shows up. There it is. So it's now showing up. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to actually download the provisioning file, which is the VIP tele-licensing file, and I will take on the role as the tenant, and I will install this, and then we're going to pause, and then what we're going to do is come back in a separate recording and onboard the vEdge. Okay, our tenant has been added, so I can see it here now, and I can select it. Okay, so now I'm actually logged in as the tenant view. You can see A Spade Cisco. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload the VIP tele license file. And so I'm going to upload one list. I'm going to browse to the file I just downloaded. There it is, VIP teleserial file. And I'm going to say validate. And yes to upload. Okay, we're going to stop here for this recording. This is finishing up the build of the cluster, so the configuration of the overlay. The underlay was completely automated. Now we're taking on the persona of the tenant. And in the next video, I'm going to be the tenant and onboard my edge device. And then after that, we're going to jump in and do the Azure underlay and deploy the controllers to Azure and talk about the differences between AWS and Azure and the underlay. And the overlay install is actually identical. So we don't have to go through this part twice. But what we will be doing after we do the Azure underlay is we're going to be going into the API and which components of the manual steps we've done so far that we can do through the API, and then add into our automation pipeline where it makes sense.